So for this elimination method, let's go ahead and write down the definition. And then in the corner of your notebook, kind of like we did with substitution, I want you to take these steps for elimination and write them down like in the corner of your page, somewhere that you can come back and look at it as many times as you need to. So I will give you guys a good amount of time. Let's begin with 5 minutes to write all of this down. Hopefully we can do it in 5 minutes and then we can get started. All right, y'all, that was 5 minutes. Now, the 3 steps, you'll see them in every single slide from here on out. So if you didn't finish writing those, you will be able to in the next slide. But can I get a volunteer, please, to read for us what the elimination method is?
Um, the elimination method is a method used to solve systems of equations in which one variable is eliminated by adding or subtracting two equations in the system.
Awesome. All right, so here, that's our key word for today. We are going to be adding and subtracting. Adding and subtracting a whole system. That kind of sounds a little weird without me actually showing you what that looks like. So let's just jump right in and do one example, and then you guys will see exactly what I mean. So first of all, let's just start with this example. Go ahead and write it down. And as you write it down, think to yourself and write it in the chat for me. What do you notice about the coefficients of the y terms? Now, what is a coefficient again?
The number in front of a variable.
Good. The number in front of a variable. So as you write it down, just take a look. What do you guys notice about the coefficients of the y terms? Okay, so I'm seeing some replies already. I'm seeing some people are saying that they are the same. Some people are saying that they're almost the same. So it's somewhere in between. What is the same? What's different?
They have the same number, but
Mhm.
but one is negative while one is positive.
Perfect. So same number, one is positive and the other one's negative. So what that means is that these are opposites. So these are opposite values. So one is positive 4 and the other one is negative 4. And you may, yeah, go ahead and write that down. That's going to be very important. So what we always, always, always need in order to do elimination is opposite values in the coefficients. So when you look at a new problem in front of you and you notice that they have opposite values, like in this example, then you know that you're good to go to do elimination. So what I'm going to do in the next slide is show you the process of elimination. I'm going to show you those 3 steps that are written in the steps. All right, so I'll give you guys about another 30 seconds to write this down, and then we can get started on that problem. All right, so let me go ahead now and go on to our problem. It's the same exact equation. So first thing, like I said, is to just see if you find any opposites. And like we said, there are opposites right here with my positive 4 and my negative 4. So can I get a volunteer really quick to read me step 1? What am I doing in my step number 1?
Add or subtract the equations to eliminate one variable, then solve for the other variable.
Awesome. So essentially, we are going to add these 2 equations together. And let me show you what that means. So first, I'm going to write my equation A and my equation B, just kind of copy them down. So I have 2x minus 4y equals negative 10. And then I have 3x plus 4y equals 5. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to literally add the bottom equation and the top equation together. And the way that you do this is first we want to make sure that all of the variables are lined up correctly. So I have my x on top of the x, my y on top of the y, my two equal signs are lined up, everything is lined up perfectly. And all we do is we just add straight down. So for my x's, I'm doing 2 plus 3. 2 plus 3
5.
is 5, so I have 5x. Now what happens with the y values? I have -4 plus 4.
It turns into a 0, positive 0.
Yeah, just 0, exactly, because that's the reason that we want opposite values, is because when you have opposites, they cancel out, and what we end up with is 0. And then -10 plus 5, what's that going to be?
-5.
-5, good. And if it helps you to just put a little plus sign in front of it to remind yourself that you're adding, that's also helpful as well. So here is my resulting equation. Now, since I have a 0, I can basically just write 5x equals -5. And just like Raymond read for us before, once you add or subtract, in this case we added, when you add the equations and eliminate the variable, what did we eliminate? We eliminated
Y.
the y, exactly. What we do next is solve for the other variable. So now we're going to solve for x. And it's actually quite easy. It's basically just going to be one step. What's the one step I need to take?
Division.
We're going to divide. Divide by 5 on both sides. And I get x equals, close,
-1.
-1. Why is it -1?
Is it because of the -5? I thought that if the denominator is a negative, that means it is but if it okay.
It goes both ways. So a positive divided by a negative is negative, but the other way around as well. A negative divided by a positive is also a negative. So it goes both ways. As long as you have one negative there, the whole thing ends up negative. So it is -1. And guess what? That whole step, we already got our value for x. Remember how in substitution, you had to do step 1 and then all of step 2, and only then would you get the value for x or the value for y? Well, in this case, it's all done in step 1. We're already halfway there. We already have our x. But now we need to find our y. And the very nice thing about elimination is that from here on out, it is exactly the same as substitution. What does step 2 tell me to do? Who would like to read step 2?
I'll read.
Go ahead.
Substitute the value into either original equation to find the value of the eliminated variable.
Exactly. So basically, now that I have x, I'm going to take that -1 and bring it right back into one of my original equations. Either one works. A and B are both good options. Let's just go for B. So go ahead on your own, plug in -1 for x and see what you get for y.
We type it in the chat.
Yeah, you can type it in the chat. 30 more seconds if you would like to try it on your own and send me your answer. Alrighty, so all we needed to do was plug in a -1 for x. So here's my -1, and then we solve for y. So 3 times -1,
-3.
-3. -3 plus 4y equals 5. What do I do to both sides?
Add 3.
Add 3. 3 plus 5? Or 5 plus 3? 8.
8.
And finally, I
Divide.
divide by 4 on both sides. 8 divided by 4
2.
is good, is 2.
Wait, Miss Lopez,
Yes,
I did something wrong.
what happened?
Well, I got the answer correct, but I didn't like add 3. I subtracted 3, and then
Ooh. And you still got the same answer?
I believe so.
You got lucky. That's okay. Well,
It's 1/2. I just put 2 because 4
oh.
is 2. So
So you made 2 mistakes, which made it was like 2 negatives made a positive for you. You ended up back where you should have in the first place. That's okay though. This is the time to make mistakes. Solution is, how do I write my final solution?
-1, 2.
-1, 2. Good. As a remember, we always write it as a coordinate point. That's it. That is elimination. 2 steps. Technically, it's 3 steps, but the third step is just telling me to write it as an ordered pair, so that's not really a step. And that's it, and we're done. Any questions? So I already see one question in the chat. So somebody asked me, how do you know if you need to add or subtract? We're gonna start with adding, and then in like 2 problems, I'll show you what it looks like when you have to subtract. So you'll see it in just a minute. But so far, we're just adding. Any other questions? All right, let's do another one. All right, so here's a second example. Now in this example, go ahead and start writing it down, but also let me know which variable should I be eliminating. Should I eliminate the x or should I eliminate the y?
why?
Good. And why is that?
So
They have the same number, but they're opposites.
They have opposite coefficients, exactly. One is positive and the other one is negative. So I know as soon as you see opposite coefficients, you already know you can add. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And if you feel like you want to try it on your own, go ahead of me. If you want to go a little more quickly, go for it. Try it out on your own. So I'm going to add equation B. So I'm adding my little plus sign here. I have a plus sign here. And I'll put a little plus sign everywhere. That way we know for sure that we're adding. And I just go straight down. So 4, and then this x that's by itself, we know it's technically 1x. So we're just doing 4 plus 1.
5x.
5x. What happens to my y's?
They cancel out.
They cancel. So I have a 0. And then what's 12 plus 8?
20.
20. So I've got 5x equals 20. And my final answer for x?
3.
4.
4. How do you get 4?
Divided
Oh, by
divided by 5.
There you go. Yeah, we're dividing by 5. So x equals 4. See how much quicker that is than substitution? It's kind of crazy, right? I always like, and you'll notice this, but Miss Lopez is a little tricky with you guys. She likes to give you the hard problems first and then let you struggle through the hard problems and then show you the quick way to do things. You got to earn it. All right. I got x equals 4 in step 2. Now I'm going to plug that back in. Do you guys want me to plug it into equation A or into equation B?
B because it's easier.
Yeah, B is a little easier. It doesn't have, the x doesn't have a coefficient, so it's a little less work. So I just plug that right in. 4 plus 2y equals 8. And solving for y, what do I do first?
You subtract 4.
From both sides, good. 8 minus 4 is 4. And then I divide by 2. And I get y equals 2. So my solution is 4 comma 2. And that is it. How do we feel? Any other questions before I have you guys try this on your own? All right. So in the next example, and I'll give you guys another 30 seconds to finish writing, but in the next one, you guys are going to try it completely on your own. So if you have any questions while you're working on that one, you can ask them in the chat. But I do want you guys to try, if you make a mistake, that is good. That is totally good because I can fix those mistakes so that you don't make them next time. So it's better to try things and do them terribly right now than it is to not even try it at all, wait a couple of days, things get harder, you're still stuck, and then I can't really help you. So make mistakes now as opposed to later. Y'all ready? Go ahead and try this one on your own. I'll put 5 minutes on the timer. About 2 minutes remaining if you're still working. All right, a little bit less than a minute remaining. All right, time is up. Okay, so in this example, which ones, it seems like there's a little bit of a pattern so far. Which ones am I eliminating here?
Why?
Right, the y. Okay, so I'm just adding. Since I have opposites, when you have opposites, you add. That's always the pattern. Let me actually write that down. Opposite coefficients, we add. Now in the next example, you'll see what happens when they're not opposites. All right, so I'm adding. Now let me actually rewrite this a little bit different, because like I said, I am adding. It's just that I'm adding -5. Remember what and I've said this before, I just want to make sure we understand that subtraction is the opposite of addition, right? But when you subtract, it's the same thing as adding a negative number. So even though my original equation was -5y, that's the same thing as if I add -5y. When you subtract, when you take things away, you are adding a negative number. So that's why I rewrote it the way I have it here, just so that I can show you that we're still adding, it's just that I'm adding a negative number now. So here we go. So 2 plus 3 is 5. +5 plus -5 gives me, or in other words, what happens to my y's?
They eliminate.
Yeah, they cancel out, they eliminate, you get 0. And then here, what's -24 plus 14?
-10.
-10, very good. -10. So I have 5x equals -10. We divide both sides by 5, and what's -10 divided by +5?
-2.
Good, -2. Here we go, that's step 1, all done. Forgot to write step 1. Okay, step 2, I take that -2 and I plug it back in. Do you guys want me to plug it into A or into B?
B.
All right, sounds good, Lauren.
A.
Ooh, sorry, Lauren beat you to it. All right, so here we go. Now B is kind of nice because there's, well, they both have negatives, but at least the numbers are a little bit smaller in this one. So I'm going to plug that in for X. Plugging in a -2. And let's do our math. 3 times -2.
-6.
-6 minus 5y equals 14. Now what?
The 5y cancel out.
The
6.
right, the 6 first. We're going to add that 6 first. 14 plus 6,
20.
20.
20. Both sides divided by -5.
-4.
We got -4. Nice job. So my final answer, my solution,
-2, -4.
-2 comma -4. Beautiful. And remind me, what actually is happening at -2 comma -4? What happens at -2 comma -4?
Is that a solution?
Intercepting.
Right, so it's a solution, but what that actually means, and I see Ujira said it, Alyssa said it out loud or in the chat, is that they intersect. Remember that these two lines, A and B, those equations are actually representing a linear function on a graph. So you've got two lines and they're meeting, they're intersecting at -2 comma -4. So that's what the solution means, okay? Don't forget what we're actually doing here. All right, so far we've only looked at examples so far when we are adding, and that's when you have opposite coefficients. Now take a look at this one. What is different here?
Instead of opposites, they're equals.
Exactly. Instead of opposites, we have the same values. We have equal values. We have +2 and +2. So we can't add in this case because if we added these together, we wouldn't get 0. What would we get?
4.
We would get 4y, right? 2 plus 2 is 4. So that's not going to help us out because remember, the whole goal, the whole point of elimination is to eliminate, is to get rid of whatever one of the two variables. So we're going to have to do something a little bit different. So let's take a look. So we already said we want to get rid of one of these. And even though these are not opposites, they're close, right? They're the same, but they're pretty close. Like I could probably turn one into a negative instead. So what we're going to do is you can call this two different things. You can call this subtracting, or you can kind of think about it like we're going to just multiply by -1. Because what is multiplying by -1 do to a number? So if I have 2 and I multiply it by -1, what does that do to my number?
It turns it into a
And
negative.
it's a negative.
Yeah, it turns it into a -2, right? And that's what I need. I have a +2, but I want a -2. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take the bottom equation, and it doesn't matter which one actually. You could do the top one or you can do the bottom one. And you're going to multiply it all the way, everything, the whole thing times -1. Why do you guys think that I have to multiply everything instead of just the 2? Any ideas? Why do I have to take all of it, at the whole equation, and multiply it by -1?
If not, your answer wouldn't be accurate.
Yeah, exactly. Because what is that? What does an equation do? An equation has to like balance. We kind of always want to think about equations like they're balancing. When something is equal, it's perfectly the same on both sides. But what would happen if I multiplied only the left side, only one thing, by -1? It would throw the whole thing off balance because whatever you do on one side, what do you always have to do?
Go to the other side.
On the other side as well. Exactly. So always remember with an equation, in order to keep it equal, you always do whatever you do on one side, you also do to the other. So that's why we do it all the way to everything. So here we go. So I have equation A is the same, A staying exactly the same. 3x plus 2y equals 5. But B is times -1. So let's go ahead and see what do we get when we multiply B times -1?
Negative x.
Negative x. And then
-2.
Negative 2y.
-2y, good. And what happens to my -1?
A positive one.
Positive. It switches to +1. +1. Okay. So we had everything that was positive turns negative. Everything that was negative turns positive. That's what multiplying by -1 does. It switches the sign. If you had started with a positive, now you're negative. If you had started with a negative, now you're positive. And what we do now, I always say, like, I don't want to say that we're just adding because we're not. We're kind of subtracting on some of them and adding on some of them because it just depends on what you see. So for example, for my x's, am I adding or am I subtracting here?
Subtracting.
Yeah, because I have that minus sign. I have that negative sign, which is telling me to subtract. So I'm doing 3 minus 1x. What do I get?
2x.
2x. Good. What happens to my y's?
They cancel out.
They cancel out. So that's 0. And for these, so the answer is on the other side. Am I adding this or am I subtracting that?
Adding.
Or adding. So I'm doing 5 plus 1. So I got 6. All right, so if I just go straight across, just take each like column, each section on its own. If there's a negative sign, you're subtracting. If there's a positive sign, you're adding. And it just depends on what you have. So now this is exactly like what we were doing before. I divide both sides by 2. And now I have x equals 3. And that's my step 1. Questions on this step? It's definitely, we're adding another step to it. So do I have questions on that? Okay. So here's step 2 is the same. Nothing changes for step 2. We're still just going to choose one of the original equations to plug it into. And I say we choose equation B. Doesn't really matter, but this one is a little bit simpler. So I plug in my 3 for x. And what should I do to both sides?
Subtract 3.
Subtract 3, good. Cancels out. What's -1 minus 3?
-4.
-4. So I have 2y equals -4, and then I divide both sides by 2. What's -4 divided by +2?
-2.
-2.
That's 2.
Good. Final answer, final solution
3, -2.
is 3, -2. There it is. So we are going to do more examples of this because we want to make sure we can do it anytime. Like if you don't have opposite, I keep saying, if you don't have opposites, you want to create opposites. So in this example, we created opposites by multiplying the equation b times -1. That helped us to create opposites. And that's always going to be your goal. As long as you have opposites, you can eliminate. So that's always going to be your goal, is to make it into opposites so that you can then eliminate. And we'll do another example coming right up. I'll give you guys about 15 more seconds to finish writing. All right. Okay, take a look at these. It's a little bit different. What do we notice?
It is adding.
So the top one is adding, or the bottom one? Which one?
Oh, we don't have same coefficients anymore.
Right. We don't have opposites, we don't have equals, we don't have anything, do we? Basically, everything is different. Okay. So what we're going to do here is actually very similar to what we did in this example. Remember that in this example, we had equals, but we wanted them to become opposites. So we multiplied everything in equation b by -1, and that helped us to create opposites. Well, we're going to do the same thing here, but we're not going to multiply things by -1. We're going to multiply things by another number that can help you to create opposites. So the first thing you always want to do is decide which variable you want to eliminate. Do we want to eliminate the x's or do we want to eliminate the y's? What do you guys think?
The y's.
The y's sound good to me. If you wanted to eliminate the y's, you would want these to be opposites, right? I have a +8 on the top. I have a -2 on the bottom. How can I make that -2 into a -8, since that's what I want it to be?
Multiply it by 4.
Multiply it by 4. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So notice, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bottom equation and I'm going to multiply it all the way across everything by 4. And if you're a little bit lost right now and you're not sure why we're doing this, let's just watch the next step so that you can see what happens. So A is exactly the same. We're not changing A at all. But we're going to do B times 4. B times 4. So everything in equation B is multiplied by 4. So going straight across, 2 times 4,
8.
8x. -2 times 4,
-8x.
-8x. -8, sorry, y.
Y.
And then -10 times 4,
-40.
-40. So what happened? What did we create?
Opposite coefficients.
We created opposite coefficients for our y values. I have a +8 and I have a -8, which means I can now treat this like a normal elimination problem. We're just going to go and add them up. So I'm going to be adding, I'll put my plus sign, But remember, if you see a minus sign, you're going to treat it like subtraction. That's the kind of the trickiest thing to like think about. But if you just remember to take each column on its own, you will not be confused. So we're just doing this column right now. We're just doing 3 plus 8. 3 plus 8 is
11.
11. Then we're just going to take this column. What happens to this one?
0.
Cancels out. 8 minus 8 is 0. And then we just take the third column. And am I adding this or what's happening here?
Subtracting.
Yeah, I'm subtracting. So this is 7 minus 40. 7 minus 40.
Negative 30.
Negative
33.
33. Negative 33. Because I'm starting with 7 and I'm taking away 40. So negative 33. And that means I have 11x equals negative 33. I divide both sides by 11. And what do I get?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. Okay. So with elimination, this is what most of your problems are going to look like. Most of the time, you're not going to have opposites. So you need to create opposites by multiplying first. How do we feel about that? Do I have any questions as I continue on? Okay. Now we already know the next step is the same as always. I just go ahead and I take my negative 3. Do you guys want me to plug it into equation A or B?
B.
Sounds good.
B. A.
So 2x minus 2y equals negative 10. Plugging in my negative 3. Two times negative 3 is
Negative 6.
negative 6. Oh, sorry, that's a minus sign. So negative 6 minus 2y equals negative 10. How do I go from there?
Subtraction.
Subtract.
Mhm.
Which one?
Oh, I mean addition.
Add 6.
There we go, good. We're going to add 6. Leaving me with negative 2y, and then what's negative 10 plus 6?
Negative 4.
Negative 4, very nice. Divide both sides by negative 2. What is negative 4 divided by negative 2?
Positive 2.
Positive 2.
Positive 2. And we are done. Solution?
Two,
Negative
comma,
3,
negative 3.
comma 2.
So, okay, good. Remember, it's x and then y. So it would be negative 3, comma 2. That's it. So even though we have to kind of add an extra step, okay, let's do a little bit of a poll. I don't think I can actually put up a poll, but just okay, give me a thumbs up if you prefer elimination better than substitution.
We prefer what?
Elimination more than substitution. I got 3 thumbs ups for elimination, 4 thumbs ups for elimination. So 5 thumbs up, 6 thumbs up. Yeah, I think Juan gives me a thumbs down. Well, Juan, you're one of the exceptions, but for the most part, people tend to prefer elimination. And that's, I think, just because it's usually a little bit faster. Now, both of them work. If you wanted to, you could do this using substitution instead. But sometimes elimination is faster, sometimes substitution is faster. So it really just depends on the problem. And we'll get into that more like tomorrow and Wednesday. Okay, one more together, and then you guys try it on your own. So let's try this one. First thing always is to just figure out, okay, which one do I want to eliminate? And in this case, should we eliminate the x's or should we eliminate the y's?
The Y.
Yeah. Now, here's my question. We chose y, which is gonna work perfectly. Why is it maybe not such a good idea to try for x's?
Because if you multiply, it's not going to equal to 3, -3 or 2.
Right. And that's exactly what you always want to think about. Can you turn, because remember, you want them to be opposites. You want them to be the same number, but one is positive and one is negative. Can you turn a 2 into a 3 by multiplication?
No.
No.
Right. But what can you do? Can you turn a 1 into a 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can turn this 1 into a 4. And actually, do we want to turn it into a positive 4 or a negative 4?
-4.
Negative.
Negative 4, because remember, we want them to be opposites. So this entire equation is going to be multiplied by -4. So that's what we're going to do in our first step. Equation A stays exactly the same, but equation B gets multiplied all the way by -4. So go ahead, who would like to give me my equation B when I multiply it by -4?
-8
Mm-hmm.
-8
Mm-hmm. Minus 4
Yeah, -4
equals?
-32.
Close. Remember, since you have a -8 and then a -4, what happens?
Oh, 32.
Positive 32. Okay. And remember, like I said, we're just going to take things just straight down the line. So in the first column with my x's, am I going to be adding 8x or subtracting 8x?
Add.
Let me actually rephrase that because I think that was a little confusing. The symbol in front of each of those coefficients tells me what to do, right? So since I have a -8x, should I be adding or subtracting?
Subtracting will give us
Yeah, we're subtracting. So we're taking away. So this is -3 minus 8.
-10.
Negative. You're close to Jaira. I think you
Negative
just
11.
-11. Yeah. -11x. All right. So that's how we do it every time. Like each column is going to tell a different story. In my x's, I'm subtracting. In my y's, what happens?
They cancel out.
They cancel out. And over on this side of the equation, am I adding or subtracting?
Add.
We're adding, yeah. So 12 plus 32,
44.
44. And now I have my equation, -11x equals 44. And I'm down to my last step. What do I do?
Divide.
Divide by negative
11.
-11, which gives me x equals
-4.
-4. Very good. Go ahead and do the final step on your own. So figure out what our final solution is going to be. I'll give you guys about 2 minutes and then we'll do it together. About 30 seconds remaining. All right. All right, so should I plug this into equation A or B?
B.
B. I mean, you could do A. A is perfectly fine. It'll still give you the right answer, but in my opinion, B is just a little bit easier. Just like the numbers are smaller, there's not as many negatives to work with. Okay, so I plug this in for my X, plugging in -4. 2 times -4,
-8.
-8. What do I do to both sides?
Divide.
I'm not dividing yet.
Add 8.
Right, we're gonna, first we wanna move that 8 over, so we're gonna add 8 to both sides. What happens here? What's -8 plus 8?
0.
Right, we get 0. We get y equals 0, which is actually fine. That doesn't, I know it looks a little sketch, but it's actually, that just means that my final solution is
-4, comma 0.
-4 comma 0. Exactly. Sometimes you do just end up with y equals 0 or x equals 0. And, you know, always check your work to make sure that that's the right answer. And sometimes that's okay. That's fine. That is my solution. -4 comma 0. Any final questions before I have you guys try this completely on your own? Okay, so in this next slide, you're going to see 2 examples. So I do want you to try both of them if you are able to, you know, in the time. I'm going to give you, let's do 7 minutes. Maybe you'll complete it way faster than that. Maybe you still need more time, but let's do 7 minutes. That way we have enough time to go over it and finish class for today. So go ahead and get started. 7 minutes are on the clock. You may begin. Okay, about 15 seconds remaining. I want to give you guys more time, but I also want to make sure we get to go over them. So this is it. Here we go. All right. That's the timer. All right. So equation or example number 1. In example number 1, which variables should I try to eliminate? The x's or the y's?
The X.
Yeah. Because I can turn that 3 into a -6, which is what I want. Remember, we want opposites. I can turn that 3 into a -6. What should I multiply by in order to turn that 3 into a -6?
-2.
-2. So we want to multiply everything by -2, and that's very important. If you chose to multiply it by +2, you would not have opposites. Remember that you always, always, always want opposites. So when I multiply everything times -2, I end up with -6x minus 6y equals -24. Now equation B is staying exactly the same. 6x plus 11y equals 14. Now that I have created my opposites, I can add or subtract or whatever it's telling me to do. Remember, it just depends on what is there. Since I had a +6, I'm adding. But what does that mean? What happens with my x's?
Cancels out.
They cancel out.
Yeah, these cancel out. What about my y's? I have a positive 11. I'm adding 11. So it's -6 plus 11. What do I get?
5.
5. So 0 plus 5y. And over here, -24 plus 14, since I have a plus sign. What do I do? What do I get?
-10.
-10. So my final answer, when I divide by 5, what do I get? -2. So y is -2. We're going to plug that back in, and I know we're almost out of time, so I'm going to quickly plug this into A. 3x plus 3 times -2. 3 times -2 is -6. To solve for x, we're just going to add 6 to both sides. What's 12 plus 6?
18.
18. And then divide by 3. 18 divided by 3.
6.
Is 6. So for example 1, my solution was 6 comma -2.
2. I knew it had something to do with the x's, but I was too confused.
Right, so always remember, if you're not sure where to begin, always think, which variable are you trying to eliminate, and how do you create opposites? What do you multiply by in order to make opposites happen? So in this case, we had to multiply the top equation by -2. What about in example 2? Which variable do we want to eliminate, x's or y's?
Why?
Good, so we can eliminate the y's. Could I also choose to do x's in this problem? Is there a way to do that?
No.
No?
Well, yes, I believe, because if you yes, if you multiply by -5.
Yeah, if you take the top equation and multiply it by -5, you can make your x's cancel out. But let's do the y's really quick. Oh my goodness, I only have 1 minute. You know what? I'll do this for your bell ringer tomorrow. So I'll just leave this for your bell ringer for tomorrow so that we can just quickly do this. You do have a homework assignment. I already posted it on Khan Academy. It is due on Thursday at midnight, and it is elimination. So if you want to get some practice tonight, you can start it, or you can wait until tomorrow after we've done a few more examples. That is all for today, you guys. So have a good day. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.
Have a nice day, Ms. Lopez. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye, Ms. Lopez.
Bye, Samantha. Have a nice day.